I was talking, I think, last week about how much our sort of search for well-being, search for whatever it is we're searching for, is really driven pretty much entirely by our definitions of things, right? So both in terms of defining ourselves as the one looking for whatever it is we're looking for, and then our definitions of the phenomena that we're seeking or imagining we need to have in some form or another. And that we were exploring basically the impossibility of definition. And I wanted to focus on something I talk quite a lot about, but I think it's worth um, appreciating. Somehow seems to be so rich to appreciate, um, and that is the simple fact of the dynamic nature of what's here. And those are just words that I just uttered, but and it's not merely an idea, it's actually the actuality of our experience right now. So I just invite you to notice that fact right now, to feel the fact of the movement of this, the ceaseless unfolding of this, the relentless opening of what's here experientially, relentlessly opening into opening, into opening. And notice the way in which the flow really, truly, undeniably doesn't stop, seemingly. The flow of this opening doesn't. It doesn't come to a stop. No matter what language and conceptualization might suggest about the static, fixed nature of phenomena, as evidenced by the fact that we have nouns in language, right, which suggest thingness, which suggests static thingness to phenomena. The actual reality is unmistakably, inarguably not that. It is not static, is it? And this is really so obvious and so powerful to actually feel this, to feel the unstoppable flow of this moment. I mean, in a certain way, I could boil all of this down, all that I'm talking about, to simply enjoying the flow of this moment. Enjoying the fact of its dynamism, its shape-shifting nature. Every single aspect of our reality is like that, isn't it? What we call thoughts, what we call feelings, what we call sensations are a flow. They're not really a thing, are they? You don't have a thought. We don't have a thought that's a thing that holds still. There's a flow of what we might describe as thinking, but it doesn't, the arising of this phenomena we call thinking, again, doesn't actually appear and kind of hang out for a while and hold still and like remain as a freeze frame, you know. It's a little bit like language. Language sort of is suggesting the holding still of things, the freeze framing of things, or the ability to freeze the frame of reality enough so that you can define it, right, as something. But it's a bit like taking a photograph and imagining that the photograph is somehow reflective of reality, which it isn't, because the reality is moving and the photograph is still, in a sense. Of course, the experience of the photograph isn't still because nothing is still, in the sense of it's alive, ever flowing, ever opening, ever morphing nature. Well, as you feel the flow, which is actually kind of a funny thing to say, because all that's ever occurring is feeling the flow of this flow, right? There's nothing ever happening but that, is there? Anything else that we might describe is really not accurate, because what's happening is a feeling of the flow of this moment. What else is there? But as we bring some kind of intentional attention to that, if you will, for a moment, and just notice the way in which the flow of the moment is happening, its transformation into whatever it sort of next seemingly becomes, the moment, its next appearance, its next apparition, its next arising, is happening absolutely effortlessly, absolutely immediately. It's always happening. The flow is instantaneously appearing, and its appearance is there's a sense of it oh, how can I describe it? Its nature, it seems to be that its intrinsic nature of the reality of the moment is for it to do this without our making it do it in the way that it's unfolding. Its unfolding is its nature. So just feel that this is the nature of this moment, to become whatever it is, in a sense, however the moment is inclined to become, however shape, whatever shape. It's not really a shape because the shape is moving, but whatever its next unfolding is it's like, if I don't know if you can see anything growing around you, like I'm looking out a window and I see trees. If you can't see out a window to see things growing, like plants or trees, you can look inside if you have a plant, and or imagine one if you can't see either, and notice that the trees outside my window they're growing. The growth is maybe subtle to notice, but of course it is constantly changing, isn't it? It's because it's alive, and its movement, the way the tree grows, the way its aliveness unfolds and shapes itself, is completely natural and organic, isn't it? So the movement of everything, the movement of the birds flying, the movement of the weather, the movement of everything in nature, right? The way the animals are scurrying, the way everything is inclined, all this phenomena is its natural unfolding, is its natural movement, its natural dynamism, its natural inclination. And this is true of everything about us as well, even though we sometimes don't include ourselves as part of that natural. I mean, everything about this moment is natural. Everything about the unfolding of you, of your being, is as natural as everything else that is appearing, isn't it? So just enjoy the naturalness of this flow, of this unfolding of you, of everything. There's an ease to the flow. There's a warmth to the flow. It's free of conflict. The flow has no conflict in it. It's just a natural, spontaneous flow, isn't it? It's completely at ease. It's completely being itself perfectly, the flow. It can't be anything but its flow. It can't be other than it is, the flow, can it? Whatever direction it seems to go, however it seems to unfold. And it's really not, despite how it sometimes is talked about as sort of this learning to kind of accept the flow or allow the flow. That's from my vantage, like it's not really accurate. I mean, it might capture a flavor of that, but it's simply life being itself. It's just being the flow. If we, the human that imagines ourselves as sort of in relationship to all of this that's arising, that's being noticed and perceived, we could characterize we're in some sort of fight with or struggle with or resistance to this flow, but that is the flow of the moment. What we might be calling resistance, that is also flow. That is the flow of the moment, isn't it? It's enjoyable, the flow, isn't it? It's quite something. It's amazing how it never really lands somewhere because it's movement, so it's always becoming. It's inherently unstable in that sense, right? It's not fixed, it's unstable, it's discontinuous. What we think of as phenomena are discontinuous in that they're not remaining the same because of flow. But the flow is continuous. What's stable is the flow, the fact, the beingness of the flow, ever present, always being, yet always becoming something else, seemingly. And really, what we think of as ourselves is simply part of the flow of reality. We're not over here sitting still and static and fixed, watching some dynamism. We are the dynamism. We're inseparable from the dynamism. There's just the dynamic flow. All the things that we imagine we have to overcome or get beyond or transcend or free ourselves from, and on and on and on, are not things. There are simply a flow, which in a sense is transcending itself in every moment, freeing itself from itself in every moment, liberating itself in every moment as the next instant, as the next appearance, as the next spontaneous upwelling of this extraordinary thing we call life, reality. And from that vantage, there's not anything to overcome. There's not anything to let go of. There's not anything to relax into. There's not anything to make happen. There's not anything to stop from happening. There's not anything to free ourselves from. There's just this continuous, extraordinary flowering. Maybe that's a good word for it, the flowering of this. We can't, no matter what we might do, we can't stop the flow. We can't turn it off. It has a mind of its own, reality. It has a way of its own way, the way, the way of flow, the Tao. It would seem. So the narratives that get applied to the flow of reality, the flow of experiencing, will often suggest an entire sort of complex set of relationships between phenomena, between ourselves and phenomena, often for the human and their quest for a sense of ease and well-being and peace and fulfillment, and on and on, takes the form of, how am I doing in relationship to all this stuff? Is the stuff, do I like the stuff? Is it okay? Is it a reflection of well-being or not? It's just constant, right? Almost constant sense of negotiating the world of objects, being in relationship to this world of objects, people, places, and things. How's it going? Am I doing okay? Is it trouble, danger? Is this good? Should I go for this? Will this bring well-being? Right? This is so much of the human condition, seemingly. But that whole narrative, just that can be there as part of the flow, but to just feel the flow of experiencing is like, where is that narrative? It goes absolutely, it's just exploded. It's just this indescribable, in the sense of, and I've talked about this before, that from the perspective of flow, there aren't forms. There's not fixed forms. Any more than the cloud has taken a fixed shape, because the cloud is moving, right? So the shape of reality, the shape of the moment, the shape of experience, the shape of you is not a shape, actually, because unless you want to call it a shape that keeps shifting, then that's not really a shape, not one that you could describe, at least, and pin down and go, oh, there is a shape. Is that okay? Is that a good shape, a bad shape, a neutral shape? Is it a potentially threatening shape? No, it's just a flow. It's just an absolute flow. Unrelenting. Something, huh? Amazing. Anytime we look, we see that the same thing, don't we? It absolutely is inarguable that we encounter the flow. It's impossible to encounter anything else. It's impossible to engage with anything else but the flow of reality. The discontinuous nature of this, or you could say the continuous nature of the flow, of the unfolding, of the transforming, always becoming. Something about that flow, I don't know how you're encountering it right now as we just feel it and point to it, but it's I remember hearing many years ago about I think it maybe came out of the Dzogchen Tibetan Buddhist tradition, about they sometimes describe this as a soothing flow. Like the flow is soothing. It has a quality of smoothness to it, of ease to it. Effortlessness to it. It's a very real aspect of the flow, which is pure pleasure. And of course, that is always available because that is what is available. Is the flow. It's all, what else is available? So wherever we look, we find the same thing. We find the flow of reality, of this, of this. We don't have to go on a retreat to find the flow. We don't have to assume any special postures or positions for the flow to be present. Um, we don't have to attend Zoom meetings like this, although it can be lovely to do that, to, in a sense, remind ourselves of this extraordinary, ungraspable, indescribable, miraculous flow of reality. And again, just, before we open this up for discussion, just feel whatever you might be imagining as yourself as the sort of noticer or witnesser of the flow. Feel the way in which your own being, your own sense of beingness is nothing but pure flow, right? Every single thing that you would think of as an element of what you are, an aspect of what you are, is pure flowering, endless opening, endless becoming, endless morphing, isn't it? So we're free of all, by our very nature and the very nature of all things, all seeming things, are all free of identification, are all free of identity, actually. I mean, literally free of identity. Because identity suggests something fixed and identifiable. There it is. There I am. I can, identity, it's very close to the word defining, identify, being able to define. I am this, I am that, that is this, that is that. Identification, freedom from identification is just to see that identity can't hold up under this relentlessness of this morphing dynamism of life. We're, what are we? Never fixed, always free of all identities, all boxes, all categories, all characterizations, all descriptions, all free of all of those. By just, not because we did anything to be free of them, but because we are free of them by the nature of the reality that we are, the infinite, ungraspable, extraordinary reality that we are made of is, by its nature, it would seem, as far as I can tell, to be nothing but this opening. Because there's nothing to overcome because there aren't things. There's nothing to be free of, nor anyone to be free of whatever it is we imagine needing to be free of. Because again, the subject and the object that we often imagine exist are simply pure dynamism, pure flow. A flow that certainly shows up as seemingly fixed forms, doesn't it? That I'm seeing on my screen. The the formless, intrinsically formless nature of this shows up as forms. So in that sense, we could say that in a very real sense, that reality is utterly transcends formlessness and form, because you can't say it's either formless or formed. It's essentially both and beyond both. But it's useful to emphasize the formless nature in a sense, because as I'm doing this morning, owing to our tendency to believe quite strongly in the formed, fixed nature of this, and then as a result of that, not infrequently struggle with the fixed, seemingly fixed, formed nature of this, right? In my travels and teaching, and um, meeting people and knowing it, of course, firsthand too, as a human, the struggles that we can encounter with events of life, phenomena of life, experiences of life. Really, the struggle comes out of, or emerges out of, or is rooted in, the suffering is rooted in the idea that there are fixed forms, right? I've got this thing, I've got this state of mind. I mean, like in my discipline of psychology, all these psychological states that humans struggle with, and then go to therapists or whoever, maybe spiritual teachers, to help them grapple with these difficult, uncomfortable mind states. The reason that the states of mind that we struggle with are not what we think they are is because they're not fixed. They're not, right? I mean, take any state. There are no states. There are no mental, emotional states. Actually, now that's amazing. Sure can seem like it, though. I know. God, it seems like something's there that's fixed, but feel it. And you will instantly, I believe, or you can instantly notice that the flow of it. And then what is it? Again, how can you be stuck in something that isn't a thing? Whatever we imagine ourselves stuck in just vanished. It just went poof. Not to minimize people's experience of suffering, because yeah, but this is what I'm talking about, is the key to freeing ourselves of that, really.